Every day, I sit down to tell a new story horror. This one's close to my heart. I don't know why I'm telling it tonight. Maybe because the autumn air has that weight to it, the kind that smells like wet leaves and old iron, and it reminds me of what happened back when I was 17. We all have a story we'd rather bury. This is mine. I grew up in a nowhere town in the hills of Kentucky, where every other person was either a coal man or the widow of one. Life was slow, simple, and most nights you could hear the frogs singing in Cold Creek louder than the church bells. Cold Creek was where I learned what real horror was. Not the kind you see in movies, with monsters jumping out of the dark, but the kind that grows roots in your chest. There was an old bridge that spanned the creek, a stone thing built back before anyone remembered who laid it. Folks said it was haunted, though in towns like mine, everything was haunted if you asked the right person. Kids dared each other to cross it at night, but mostly it was just a place you avoided if you had any sense. The legend was always the same. People said you'd see a lantern swinging in the fog, no matter the season. Sometimes it'd be down at water level, like someone walking the creek bed. Other times, it'd float above the bridge. The story went that if you followed that lantern, you'd vanish. And vanishings did happen. Not often, not enough to get the sheriff in a panic, but every decade or so, someone would be gone without a trace. Folks said they ran off or started fresh, but the ones who knew them always swore different. My own uncle disappeared that way in the 70s. He was last seen heading toward Cold Creek with a bottle of whiskey and a head full of anger. By the time I was 17, the lantern was just another story whispered at bonfires. Until the night I saw it. I was walking home from a friend's trailer, cutting through the woods because I didn't want my dad to smell the beer on my breath. It was late, and the fog had rolled in thick, clinging to the trees like cotton. I remember the damp earth sucking at my sneakers. That's when I saw it, an orange glow through the mist. At first I thought it was some farmer outlet, but no one carried lanterns anymore. The light bobbed gently, just ahead, right in the direction of the bridge. I should have turned back. Instead, I followed. Every step felt heavier, like the woods didn't want me leaving. The lantern swayed ahead of me, always just far enough to keep me moving. I didn't hear footsteps, didn't hear breathing, just a soft clink of metal, like the handle tapping against the glass. When I reached the bridge, the air was so thick with fog I couldn't see the other end. The lantern hovered right at the center, and behind it, a figure, a man, or something like one. He wore a long gray coat, frayed at the sleeves, and his head hung low like he was too tired to hold it up. His face was shadowed, but I saw his hands, pale and long-fingered, gripping the lantern. Uncle Ray. I whispered before I could stop myself. The figure twitched, like a puppet pulled by strings. Then it lifted its head, and though I still couldn't see its face, I knew in my bones, that it wasn't my uncle. The lantern swung once, twice, then the figure vanished into fog. I ran. Didn't stop until I burst through my own front door, chest heaving, shirt clinging with sweat. Dad cursed at me for slamming it, but I barely heard him. That night, I lay awake listening to the creek outside, the water whispering against the rocks. I tried to convince myself it was just a bear, just fog and fear-making shapes. But then came the news. A girl from town, Lynn, a year younger than me, never made it home that night. Her bike was found leaning against a tree not far from Cold Creek. No footprints, no signs of a struggle, just gone. And I knew where she'd gone and what she'd followed, but I told no one. That silence has sat in me for decades, festering like a wound. I've carried this story my whole life. You don't get older without learning how to keep things buried. But lately, I wonder if that's the real curse. Not the lantern, not the figure, but the silence. Because more people went missing. Every 10, 15 years, like clockwork. Always near the bridge, always in the fog. And every time, the town explained it away. Folks said people left, or drowned, or just got lost in the woods. But me? I saw the pattern. The lantern wanted company. When I left for college, I swore I'd never set foot in that town again. But life is a way of dragging you back. Dad died, and I had to handle the house. That was last year. I hadn't been back in decades, but the creek was waiting, just the same as always. On my second night there, I couldn't help myself. I walked down to the bridge. The stones were cracked, moss crawling up between them. The water below whispered like it remembered me. The fog rolled in, slow and deliberate, and sure enough, the lantern appeared. It was smaller than I remembered, dimmer. Or maybe I was just older, less willing to let my eyes lie. The figure held it, the same hunch coat, the same two long hands. But this time, it spoke. You kept your silence, it rasped, voice thin as dry leaves. So now you join them. I froze, every nerve in my body screaming to run. But I didn't. Maybe I was tired of running. Maybe guilt weighed heavier than fear. I said, take me, then, but let the others go. The figure swayed, lantern swinging like a heartbeat. Then it stepped closer, and I saw its face. It wasn't one face. It was many. Eyes layered over eyes, mouths stitched into a silent scream, skin rippling with too many memories. I saw Uncle Ray. I saw Lynn. I saw every missing person stacked like pages in a book. And I understood. The lantern didn't lure. It collected. Every soul who followed became part of it, trapped forever, their silence feeding the glow. The figure reached out, hand cold as creek water on my chest. For a moment, I thought I'd join them, but then the lantern flickered. And I realized something. The horror only lived as long as people kept quiet. The silence gave it strength. So I opened my mouth and screamed. Not words, just sound, raw, ugly, human sound. I screamed until my throat burned, until the fog shook, until the lantern shattered like glass. The figure convulsed, faces peeling away into smoke, hands grasping at nothing. With a final hiss, it dissolved into the night. The creek went still. I stood alone on the bridge, lantern shards glowing faintly at my feet. And for the first time in my life, Cold Creek felt empty. The disappearances stopped after that. No more missing girls, no more wandering drunks. Just a quiet town with too many stories it never wanted to tell. And me? I left again. For good this time. But I tell this story now because silence is the real killer. Not ghosts, not curses, silence. If something is wrong, if something is hungry, you can't bury it with excuses. You've got to drag it into the light, even if your voice shakes. Because not every lantern leads you home. Some lead you into the dark. And the only way out is to break the silence. I thought it was over. That night on the bridge, when the lantern shattered and the faces dissolved into fog, I swore I'd killed it. For months afterward, I carried that belief like a shield. Whenever I read a local paper and didn't see another missing person, I convinced myself I'd done right. I told myself Cold Creek was free. But evil doesn't just vanish. It echoes. I didn't realize that until the call started. The first one came 3 months after I'd left town again. Middle of the night, phone buzzing on my nightstand. No number, just unknown. I almost didn't answer, but habit got the better of me. When I picked up, I heard the creek. Not water over rocks like in real life, but a slowed-down version of it, heavy and unnatural, like a recording played backward. I sat frozen, phone pressed in my ear, waiting for a voice. And then it came, a whisper overlapping itself like two mouths speaking at once. We are still here. I hung up, unplugged the phone, told myself it was just some sick prank. But the calls didn't stop. Every week, sometimes twice, always at night. Always that Warp Creek sound, always a whisper. Sometimes it was names, Lynn, Ray, others I didn't recognize. Sometimes it was my own name. I stopped sleeping. I stopped answering, but the voicemails piled up anyway, 30 seconds of nothing but that cursed water sound. I should have changed my number, but some part of me was afraid to. Afraid of cutting the line and losing the chance to understand what it wanted. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized breaking the lantern didn't release them. It only broke the cage. Now they were loose. I went back to Cold Creek in the spring. The town hadn't changed much. Gas stations still sold stale coffee and biscuits hard as bricks. Main Street still had more boarded windows and working stores. The bridge was still there too, though the county had put up a bright yellow sign, unsafe structure. Do not cross. I crossed anyway. The moss was slick under my boots, the stones darker than I remembered. At the center, where the lantern had shattered, the air was colder, sharper, like stepping into a cellar. and carved into the stone, shallow but fresh, was a single word: listen. I left before nightfall, but the weight followed me home. It wasn't just me anymore. News started spreading online, paranormal boards, small-town blogs. People claimed to hear voices in the creek at night, even miles away. Some swore their radios caught the sound of running water on clear channels, followed by whispers, and then someone posted a video. It was grainy, filmed on a phone, but clear enough. The lantern was back. Not on the bridge this time, hovering along the banks, flickering weakly. The figure was gone, but the light swayed as if carried by invisible hands. The comments split in two. Some said it was fake. Others said it proved everything. Me? I just felt sick, because I knew what it meant. The silence I'd broken had scattered the voices, but not destroyed them. Now they were searching for a new vessel. And maybe, just maybe, they wanted me to finish what I'd started. Last night, I had a dream. Or maybe it wasn't a dream at all. I was standing on the bridge again, fog curling around my ankles. The lantern shards were glowing faintly, like embers that refused to die. And the faces, so many faces, were rising from the creek below. Tell them. They whispered in unison, voices ragged and desperate. Tell them, oh, we will never rest. I woke with my mouth open, screaming into the dark. And here I am now, sitting with pen and paper, writing this down. Not just the story of that night, but the aftermath, the echo, the calls, every detail, every shameful silence I kept. Maybe that's what they wanted all along, not just a voice, but a witness. Someone who won't bury the truth like the town always did. So I'll keep telling it. And if you're reading this, if you hear a lantern swaying in the fog or water rushing in your phone late at night, don't follow. Don't answer. Don't let silence swallow you. Because Cold Creek is still speaking. And the only thing keeping it from dragging us all under is that someone, somewhere, must never stop telling the story. I should have stopped after writing it all down. The night I put my story on paper, I felt lighter, like I'd finally passed the weight to someone else. But the calls didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. The warped sound of Cold Creek came through not just my phone, but the television, the radio, even the hum of the refrigerator at 3 a.m. And always, beneath it, the whisper, finish it. I don't know if it was guilt or destiny that finally broke me, but I knew where I had to go. The bridge. One last time. Cold Creek looked different when I returned. Like the land itself knew what slept there. Trees along the water were bare, though it wasn't winter. Birds wouldn't fly near it. Even the air smelled wrong, a mix of rust and stagnant water. The warning sign still hung at the bridge's entrance, unsafe structure. Do not cross. This time, I believed it wasn't for falling stones. It was for what waited in the fog. I stepped onto the bridge anyway. The moment my boots touched the stone, the fog thickened, not drifting in from the water, but pouring up through the cracks beneath my feet, curling around my legs like it wanted to hold me in place. At the center, where the word listen had been carved, the lantern was waiting, but it wasn't broken anymore. The glass was whole, the flame steady, brighter than ever. And behind it, no figure this time, no coat, no hands. Just a light, suspended in the fog. You told the story, the voices hiss, layering over each other like a chorus. Now you finish it. I stood frozen, breath shaking in my chest. I don't understand. The lantern swung gently. You broke the silence. You scattered us, but you did not give us rest. You will carry us, or you will join us. That was when the faces appeared again, rising from the fog around me. Lynn's wide, hollow eyes. Uncle Ray's twisted mouth. Dozens of others, people I didn't even know, staring at me with desperate longing. Not hateful, not vengeful, just trapped. You want me to take you, I said. All of you. The lantern flared, and the voices answered together. Yes. I realized then what they meant. Breaking the lantern freed them, but left them formless, scattered and restless. What they needed was not silence, not even voice. What they needed was a vessel. Someone to carry their story, not just in words, but in flesh. And they'd chosen me. My knees almost buckled. Part of me wanted to run, to dive into the creek and let the current sweep me away. But I was tired of running, tired of silence, tired of carrying half a burden when the whole thing was staring me in the face. So I stepped closer to the lantern. The air grew cold enough to burn, each breath like ice in my lungs. The faces swirled faster, crowding close, their whispers rattling my skull. My hand shook, but I reached out anyway. The moment my fingers brushed the handle, a flood poured into me. Memories that weren't mine. Fear, pain, screams swallowed by fog. Hands clutching a lantern. Footsteps on stone, the last breath of the lost. Lynn's laughter before it cut short. Uncle Ray's anger, the whiskey burning down his throat. 100 lives, 100 endings, pressing into my chest until I thought my ribs would crack. But beneath the horror, something else stirred. A thread, faint but steady, a plea to be remembered. And for the first time, I understood. They weren't asking for revenge. They weren't asking to drag me down. They only wanted what the town had always denied them, truth, to not be forgotten. I tightened my grip on the lantern. "Then I'll carry you," I whispered, but not in silence, not hidden in fog. The world will know. The light flared so bright it seared my vision. The faces screamed, not in pain, but release. And then, one by one, they dissolved into the flame, folding into the lantern like pages closing in a book. The fog peeled away. The bridge stood clear, stones wet with morning dew. The creek below ran quietly, like any other stream in the hills. When I looked down, the lantern was gone. But the weight wasn't. It was inside me now. That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've spoken to journalists, to historians, to anyone who'll listen. I've named the missing, told their stories, dragged the darkness into daylight. Some believe me, most don't. But the point is, they are no longer silent. And the lantern hasn't come back. Not yet. But sometimes, late at night, I hear the creak again. Not the warped, backward sound, but soft and steady, like a reminder that the burden is mine until someone else is willing to carry it forward. And maybe that's a real horror, not ghosts, not curses, but the weight of truth. Because truth never dies. It waits, patient and heavy, until someone finds the courage to tell it. So I'll keep telling it. To anyone who'll listen, and to those who won't. Because Cold Creek is quiet now, but quiet is dangerous. And I'll be damned if I let silence win again.